Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good Friday. We're going to talk about this wave out in the central Atlantic. Feels like we've been looking at it for a while and still got a ways to go with it. It has been marked by NHC now, not as an invest, but as an kind of area of interest in the tropical weather outlook, given a 30% chance in the next 5 days. Look at the satellite, you can see, there's still some scattered convection to it. Nothing super organized at the moment, just kind of firing on and off. Look at the moisture field. You can again see we kind of have this ITCZ intertropical convergence zone. This is our wave of interest. So some solid moisture, but you can see there's this dry air to the north wrapping in. And if you look at the water vapor satellite, you can kind of see that even more. Now this big tongue of dry air kind of wrapping into the north side, and so that's probably hindering it partially for a while. But it's still firing. Still has a solid wave signature there. Look at the vorticity from SIMS. You can see, it's showing up there. So it's maybe a little bit more consolidated than a couple days ago, but certainly not in a hurry to develop. And just kind of working its way westward toward the islands in the next couple days. So if you look at the forecast, it's really just as uncertain as before, if not more. There's a lot going on here. We're going to start by looking at the ensembles just to give you an idea of all the different possibilities. We're going to look at 4 different ensembles, because I think even any single ensemble doesn't really tell you the whole story. So with the ECMWF ensemble, you can see some of these members try to develop a little bit early, but basically all kind of fall off, and then most of them really don't get going with it again until the Western Caribbean. So you can see most of these are pretty weak, and at least in the next 10 days don't develop much until they get all the way here down in the Southwest Caribbean. If you look at the GFS ensemble, it's kind of a different story. We have quite a few that wait to the Western Caribbean or try to spend some there like the Euro, but a group of the ensemble members tries to develop the wave earlier here, and if it does develop earlier, it'll kind of probably be more likely to turn to the north here across Hispaniola or maybe Puerto Rico. If it gets stronger earlier, it'll feel kind of a weakness in the ridge that we'll look at in a minute. So folks there in Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico certainly should keep an eye on this in case some of these earlier, stronger solutions comes to pass. But it's also quite possible that we could just get this wave to move down here into the Southwest Caribbean and then just kind of percolate for a little while, move north, or maybe even go into Nicaragua and just fizzle out. We look at the AIFS ensemble. This is another AI ensemble you can see again. Not much of them doing anything until it gets here till about 75 west or so, and then you have some toward Nicaragua, some just kind of hanging out over the Northwest Caribbean, and then some following that path to the north. We call this the sort of squashed spider look, where you sort of have these ensemble tracks going on in all these different directions, which tells you that there's a lot of uncertainty and not much in the way of consensus yet. Last ensemble is the Google DeepMind, which is, again, another AI ensemble, and kind of the same idea, maybe, trying to form here in the central to southwest Caribbean, but some are taking it to Nicaragua. Some are kind of still trying to go to the Gulf of Honduras. Some are just hanging out here in the Caribbean. And then you have this other cluster that's going off to the northeast. And so we'll look at the individual models to kind of get an idea of the features that we're playing with here. But just the main takeaway is that we probably won't have development for another 5 days or so. And, if maybe a little before, maybe a little after, but it probably won't be till the Western Caribbean. And there's certainly no guarantee of any particular outcome. But look at some individual models. We'll start with the GFS. You can see the wave. Here it is, kind of coming to the Caribbean about Monday, so kind of early next week. Not much to look at. It does try to spin up a little bit there in about a week. 5-6 days. GFS is on the eastern end of the guidance. You can see it's kind of spinning up this vorticity here south of Hispaniola. But if you look at the upper level pattern, you can see that there's this kind of some of the features we're looking at. We've got this sort of residual weakness to the northeast, this trough, you got this ridge here. And so if the system is stronger and if it's here like the GFS shows, it's going to be more likely to be pulled out to the northeast. Whereas if you had a system down here in the Southwest Caribbean, it may be pulled more toward Nicaragua or the Gulf of Honduras. If you have something south of Jamaica, it'd be kind of in the Col region between these two features and maybe just meander around. So there's a lot of ways this could go. ECMWF is kind of the same idea. It doesn't really deepen much in the East Caribbean. You can see that if you look at the sounding, there's a lot of shear. You have the environment has about 20 knots out of the southeast, and then or the east at low levels, and about 10 knots out of the west at upper levels. That's about 25, 30 knots of shear. Not really favorable for any kind of significant development till we get further west. So if you look at what the CWF does, it's, this is now 5 days out. Really not much there. Again, you kind of have your weakness here. You have your ridge. So GFS, whereas GFS is over here, Euro is down here with a much weaker system. Kind of gets caught under that ridge a little bit. The ridge kind of does block it a little bit, so it doesn't actually get all the way under the ridge. And then 8 or 9 days out is when it finally tries to spin up into a TC. So this is still way out in time, and it's any further west, and this would be inland. And if you want to see a system that, or a model solution that does take it inland, this is the Canadian, which had been sort of developing this early, but has sort of backed off. Now it gets west really fast. It's got a very strong ridge. You can see it kind of tries to develop in about a week or so, right before it gets into Nicaragua. But because of this big, strong ridge to the north, the system doesn't have anywhere to go and just plows straight west, where you can see it. We'll just see in a second. It moves inland without much further development. So, all these are plausible outcomes. The AIFS, this has been a pretty good model this year. It's been kind of all over the place for this one. You can watch it. It basically tries to develop and then get northeast like the GFS, but then kind of the trough misses it and it meanders back west and then just kind of sits there. So there's a ton of plausible outcomes. Like I said, I think we generally have an idea that in 5 days we'll have some sort of low pressure in this general vicinity. But if it's here, we're probably trapped. If it's up here and stronger, we might escape to the north in this weakness. But there's also some question of how deep this trough will be and where this nose of this ridge will be. So really just kind of got to watch and see, wait and see what happens. Really, I don't think there's any particular solution that's most likely at this point. In terms of the threat to, or any kind of threat to the United States, this late in the season, any threat would pretty much be the southern peninsula of Florida, or the Keys for the most part, and it's much more likely that anything that develops and comes north would turn over Cuba or maybe Hispaniola just this time of year. That's the climatology. And if you look at the upper level winds, let's look at the Ensemble probably as we get out to about 10 to 15 days from now. So this is sort of when anything would be coming north. You can see you kind of do have the westerlies are starting to kind of come down here across the southern Gulf. So it'd be pretty hard for something to get much further north than, say, extreme southern Florida. And I think the Antilles are definitely the place that would have to watch this if it doesn't get shoved inland. But just keep watching, waiting. Still got a lot of time to see what this does, and we'll hopefully by early next week, maybe we'll have a better idea of where something might consolidate, if at all, and where it might go. So have a great weekend, everybody, and stay safe.